This is The Scary Guy, and I am chatting with Staxx. Staxx, baby.
Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got this scary guy.
That's exactly how I felt at that moment.
Yeah.
And it didn't last very long. It only lasted 8 years, that marriage. And we split up and went our own way, and I kept getting tattooed. And I wore a suit and tie, you know. I was working for a major computer company. And I wore a suit and tie, and I covered my tattoos up, and I was researching where I wanted to get my tattoos from, and I found a woman in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and her name was Suzanne Bowser, and I read about her in a magazine, and she had a Master's of Fine Art degree and taught high school art for 14 years, and she quit the art business and teaching to become a tattoo artist in the 60s. Now, women in the 60s didn't tattoo. That was forbidden, you know. Anyway, I liked her philosophy of life. And so what I would do on a weekend, I would book Saturday and Sunday, and she's in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So Friday night, I'd buy an airline ticket, and I'd fly to Detroit, rent a car, and drive up to Ann Arbor, 30 miles north, and get my hotel room, and then sit in her tattoo chair all day Saturday and all day Sunday, get tattooed, get on the car, drive it back to Detroit, fly back, and go to work on Monday. Nobody knew. And so I was learning how to tattoo from her at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, she tattooed half my body like that. More than half my body.
You kept your hands and everything clean, right?
Yeah, I didn't have any tattoos on my hands, neck, or face. None of it. So I could wear my suit and tie to work, and nobody even knew I was tattooed.
Yeah.
And I did that on purpose, you know, because I didn't want to have to deal with it. Until one day, they had a company picnic, and I was working for Unisys Corporation. And they had a company picnic for all of us guys that were working in the Minneapolis region. And you don't do a summer picnic in your suit and tie. you go in your shorts and your muscle shirt, you know. Well, by then, you know, half my body's tattooed, and then none of these guys that I worked with knew that I was tattooed. Well, I showed up in my shorts and my muscle shirt, and you should have heard the unbelievable. I mean, it's the comments and the unbelievable. They couldn't even handle the idea that this was me, you know, like I was somebody else. And so that was kind of the end of my career, really, in the computer business. But
so it ended.
Well, it had to, because, you know, the judgment and the way they treated me and all that kind of stuff kind of hit the fan. And I was learning how to tattoo at the time, and my mom had died, and that was a segue for me to move and get the hell out of there and quit. And I had, you know, the funniest story that I got about the computer business is a good friend of mine by the name of Phil. He got to be a district manager for another computer company, and he calls me on the phone. And he says, I got a fabulous job for you. It's $250,000 salary plus bonuses and all expenses paid and everything else. Can you want to come and work for me? And I said, Phil, I can't work for you. He says, why? I says, because I put a tattoo on my neck. He says, you what? I says, I put a tattoo on my neck. He says, well, you fool, what did you do that for? I says, because I didn't want anything to do with corporate America again for the rest of my life. That's why I did it.
So you removed yourself from the equation.
Yeah. I put the tattoo high enough above my collar line so if I wore a suit, it would show. So I purposely couldn't go back to work working for that, to me, it was kind of I didn't much appreciate that corporate scene at that time. I didn't like how they ran the businesses, and I didn't like how they treated people. So I was on my way to becoming a tattoo artist, and I said, that's it, I'm done with corporate America. And I tattooed my neck. And he was livid because I was a pretty good salesperson, you know.
Yeah.
And I was making good sales and good money, and he wanted me to be on his team, and I couldn't do it because I was tattooed neck. So
Is it nerve-wracking changing your career from being in an office to being a full-time tattoo artist? Because it's a huge difference, right?
Well, it was a massive difference, but I think mentally and emotionally, I had already been there. You know, I was already out of that world, but the only reason I was in that world was making money, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that was it. It was all about money. I wasn't that satisfied with that. I wasn't that happy. I felt pretty controlled and constricted and all the rules and regulations about living in that world. And that was hard on me. I didn't like that. I grew up as a kid. I had a undiagnosed reading disorder, dyslexia. I never read a book my whole life. So, you know, my mom would tell me when I come home from school, she'd see books in my hand, and she'd say, you got homework? I'd say, well, yeah. And she says, well, you go in your bedroom and do your reading and your homework. And I said, Mom, I can't read. Well, what do you think my mom thought? She thought I was making excuses for my homework. But I really couldn't read, so I took the books in the bedroom. Do you think I read them? No. I slammed them down on the bed, and I was pissed off, and I used to beat my pillow with anger and frustration. And then, you know, you've heard of this before, when a kid's lower lip comes up and they pout, you know, and well, I was a master at pouting, you know, and feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
So I did that on my bed instead of reading the books, and I sat in my bedroom by myself, angry and frustrated, and then depressed because I couldn't do what she told me to do, and I'd lie. And I'd say, yeah, I did it. And then I'd come out an hour later, and I didn't do anything but be angry and frustrated. So it was more of the same stuff for me when I was in the corporate world working. I felt the same energy that I had when my mom told me to go do that. So it was an easy out for me when I wanted to leave. Really easy, because the tattoo world in my life was about freedom of expression. You do what you want to do. It's your life, it's your body. You just be who you want to be. Until I got in the tattoo business.
Are you tattooing people? Were you tattooing people on the side, like while you were working?
Not one bit. Well, I opened my own shop. I opened 3 shops down there in Tucson, but I opened my first one. And then that was before the newspaper ad, and the competitor in Tucson ran that ad about me. But, you know, the funny thing about that, see, I had this good vibe about being a tattoo artist. I thought, oh, finally, I can be who I want to be, and I can express my feelings, and I can just be freewheeling and say what I want and do what I want and tattoo myself, and I don't give a rat's ass what anybody thinks about me, and nobody's going to tell me how to be, and all this other stuff. Well, the same guy that ran the ad in the newspaper put together a tattoo convention in Tucson, Arizona. And then all of a sudden, here were the rules. The more rules came out. You're not supposed to, as a tattoo artist, you're not supposed to have tattooed hands, neck, or face. So the rules were, in this convention, he printed on the convention, no facial tattoos allowed on the convention floor. And I went, wait a minute. I just left corporate America because of all those stupid rules. And now you're telling me there's more rules in a whole world that I thought was about freedom? So that was the start of me saying, there's no difference. This is all the same stuff. It didn't matter what I was doing. Everybody was doing the same thing. They all had their own little rules about how they were supposed to be. And so in the tattoo world, that was what they said. And I said, forget it. That's when I started tattooing my face. I said, it's my face, and you can't tell me what I can do with it. And I tattooed, the first tattoos on my face were little marks on the sides of my face over here. And I did them pretty much out of rebellion. I didn't care. I was going to be a tattoo artist the rest of my life. I didn't care what anybody thought. And you can't tell me I can't put one on my face. There. More rules.
You did it yourself? You did it yourself?
No. I had an artist working for me, and I would tell him what I wanted, and he would go ahead and tattoo me. And but the hard part about it is, for me, is look at what I did in Tucson with the 4 tattoos 4 days in a row. You know, I couldn't stop with one little bar on my face. Are you kidding me? You know, I'd wait 2 weeks and I'd get another little bar on this, and then another little, wait, I'd look in the mirror and go, a little more over here, and a little more up there, and pretty soon this tribal work started creeping across half my face. You know, 6 months later, I'm looking in the mirror going, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to tattoo this half of my face, and this half's going to be plain. And then my whole brain would say, and the reason for that is, because if people sitting on this side in the restaurant see me, they think I was normal. And everybody on that side of the restaurant think I was a weirdo. So I thought that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give half of them the pleasure of me being normal, and the other half of them the pleasure of hating my guts. Okay, that'll be perfect.
And you thought you could stop at that?
I couldn't stop halfway. I went all the way. And then I was at a restaurant in Tucson, Arizona. I'll never forget this. And I walked out the door, and my face is completely tattooed, and my body's tattooed, and I'm still a tattoo artist down there. And I see this old woman, she's probably in her late 70s, coming to the door. And I thought, well, I'll be nice. I'll hold the door for her. Then I opened the door, and I held the door. And I was standing outside holding the door, and she'd come through the door, and she stopped right in front of me. And she turned her face right in my face, and she said, tell me those aren't real. And I looked at her, and I said, okay, they're not real. She said, good. And she turned and walked away. And I went, oh my God. I just told her what she wanted to hear, and everything was fine. Yeah. But she must, what did she think? I mean, you know, I don't know. It's just the way people are, you know. They just don't want to believe. They just don't want to think that it's okay. They just want to pass judgment on everything, and then they make a decision. And I had a guy when I was traveling in jets, working with schools and corporations and that's another weird one. I get hired by corporations to do training and looking like this when I left corporate America. I get hired by them. That's weird. But I remember sitting on a jet in Heathrow Airport, and a British man in a business suit walks on, and I was with my third wife at the time, and he loudly sees me sitting in an airline seat, and he loudly says, completely loud, I couldn't believe how loud he said it, now, there's somebody craving attention.
What?
That's what he said out loud on the jet as he's walking past me in his suit and tie. Well, that didn't sit very well with my third wife. She just stood up and says, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, because she'd worked on the road with me and traveled the world with me, eliminating hate, violence, and prejudice. So she didn't take that too kindly, and she got up in that guy's face. But I don't, you know, people say stuff like, they've said stuff like that to me and about me my whole life. And I know what it's about, because it ain't about me. I know that everything that comes from a human being, all their words And all their actions are a direct reflection of who they are as human beings because they create it. They create all the energy in the form of words. They create all those actions, and all of that comes out of them. And that's a reflection of who they are. None of it belongs to me, and it never has. I just didn't realize it until I started teaching my program. And so now, go ahead, shoot your mouth off, because I used to do that too. Now I know who you are. There.
What's in store for the future for you?
Well, I'm kind of living it right now, actually. With this building, we've managed to open our art gallery up, and we just participated in the first art exhibit festival in the Wigan area. This has been a big, massive hit. There's been 5 or 6 different locations that have done the art festival and displayed 7 different artists here, and it was a huge success. Now it looks like we're going to do that 2 or 3 more times in a year. And then I've got my own private studio that I've set up for tattooing in the back because I really love the art form, obviously. And so I try to hold that down to maybe 20 or 30 tattoos a month because I got people that want tattoos like full time, and I don't do walk-ins. So, you know, there's people that come to the door and they talk about tattoos and stuff, but I may not do them because I've booked or I just don't want to do the tattoo. I don't need to do it anymore. And then the other thing is I still get approached by schools and individuals for the emotional intelligence training and corporations. I just got approached for corporate training. So I'm still active in doing all of those things, even though I'm an old man now.
They keep going as long as you can, right?
Yeah, well, people say, aren't you going to retire? I said, yeah. As soon as I drop dead on the stage, there's my retirement.